Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Catalyze Your Self. I'm your host, Gayatri, and today we are stepping into a conversation that brings all of our recent work together, not in theory, but in practice, because awareness without choice becomes an insight with no embodiment. And insight wasted is when insight has no action as a result of it. Or to say that a different way, insight without action becomes wisdom left unused. In our last episode, we awakened conscious awareness. We explored the depths of our mind, how consciousness is not just one thing, but many things, layered, alive, and always in motion. We honored the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious as a synergistic system, one that, when we integrate it through self-awareness, becomes the foundation of intentional living. And now we ask the next question. What do we actually do with that awareness? How do we live it, act on it, apply it? That is where choice comes in. Today's episode is about reclaiming your relationship with choice, not just in big, life-altering decisions, but in the quiet, everyday moments where your patterns either lead your life or you lead your life by overcoming your patterns. Because here's the truth, your choices matter. They matter not because they must be perfect, but because they reveal what you're making decisions from. Are you choosing from fear or clarity? Are you choosing from a reactionary standpoint or alignment? Are you choosing from autopilot or from presence? We often think of choice as a singular decision point, but the kind of choice we are exploring today is not just cognitive. It is integrated, a choice that draws from logic, from emotion, and your consciousness, your intuition. Because when these three are aligned, not competing, not fragmented, your choices become powerful expressions of your growth. So, if you've ever felt like you're stuck in indecision, if you've ever wondered why you keep choosing the same thing and expecting different results, if you're ready to explore what it means to choose from wholeness, not habit, then stay with me. Because this is not about doing more. It is about choosing with more of you. Let's start with a question that may sound simple but carries incredible depth. What does it mean that your choices matter? It is not about perfection. It is not about making the right choice every time. It is about becoming aware of where your choices come from. Because the truth is, we're always choosing. Even when we avoid a decision, that is a choice. When we let someone else decide for us, that is a choice. When we repeat a pattern without questioning it, that too is a choice. So what matters most is not just the outcome, but the origin. Are you choosing from fear, from fatigue, from old programming? Are you choosing from alignment, from a space of clarity, presence, and self-respect? Before we go any further, let's take a moment to distinguish three types of choices we all make. One is automatic choices. They're driven by subconscious patterning. They feel familiar, fast, and often we let it go unquestioned. Their habits, their defaults, their that's just who I am, how I am moments. Often efficient, but not always intentional. And then you have fear-based choices. These are most often rooted in the unconscious. It's shaped by past wounds, unprocessed pain, or inherited beliefs. They sound more like, I should do that, or what if they fill in the blank? What will they think? These choices are about safety, not alignment. And then the third types of choice we make are conscious choices. These are made from integration, where your logic, your emotion, and your intuition are in collaboration, in conversation, and not in conflict. These choices may still feel uncomfortable, but they feel true. They feel like growth. And why does this matter? Because the choices you make each day, how you speak to yourself, how you respond to stress, what boundaries you hold, what energy you tolerate, these shape your life far more than big dramatic turning points. The real shift happens in the ordinary moments. The moment you pause before reacting, the moment you say yes or no based on your values, not your fears, the moment you stop running from discomfort and choose to sit with it instead. These are the moments that matter, and there are choices that build a life you actually want to live. Now let's start asking ourselves this. If our choices are so powerful, why do we so often feel like we don't have a choice? It is because we have been conditioned. We've been trained, sometimes unconsciously, to give away our power of choice. It's not always by force. It is more subtle. It is by habit, by fear, by the quiet pull to belong, to avoid conflict, or to keep pace at any cost. And in today's world, that conditioning doesn't just happen through our early life or emotional pressure. It happens through what we surround ourselves with and what we consume information, the content we scroll through, the voices we follow, the headlines we absorb, the narratives we internalize and choose to believe. What we consume becomes part of how we choose. Sometimes it's subtle. We adopt someone else's definition of success. We buy into the urgency we don't actually feel. We believe that we are not constantly visible, that we are not somehow valuable. These stories, repeated enough times, turn into your self-talk, your inner scripts. Conditioning today is no longer just about keeping peace with others. It is about navigating a world that is consistently and constantly telling us who to be, how fast to go, what to want, and why we are behind. So, reclaiming your power of choice means you're asking, where are my beliefs coming from? Do I even agree with them anymore? And what would I choose if I were not afraid of what others might think? Let us also name some common ways we unknowingly give our power away. We can do that when we default to others' opinions. whether it is family, culture, community, or even a workplace dynamic. We sometimes give more weight to what others want for us than what we want for ourselves. We seek approval before truth. We override our inner yes for our inner no to protect someone else's comfort. We let emotions choose for us. Emotions are important. They're important signals. But when we are unaware of their origin, they start to make decisions for us. We act as a result of that emotion versus comprehending what to do with that emotion. We act in anger, silence, fear, or even we tend to overextend because we feel the emotion of guilt. When we don't pause or process or integrate, we allow emotion to drive our choices reactively instead of informing them reflectively. Another is we avoid choosing altogether. We delay, we hesitate, we wait for clarity without taking action. But indecision is still a decision. It's a decision to let the moment pass or to stay in place. Avoidance can be a pretender, one that makes it seem that it is protecting us from failure, while it is leading us right to failure. And at the same time, also keeping us from freedom. Here's the deeper truth. Conscious choice is uncomfortable because it requires ownership. It means no longer outsourcing your life to circumstance, emotion, or expectation. It means standing in your values, even when it's inconvenient. But it also gives you something even more powerful: freedom. Because once you reclaim your power to choose, you stop wasting and waiting for life to give you permission and start creating your life from the inside out. Because every time you make a conscious choice, you are leading yourself. You are leading from within. Because real leadership does not become or begin with titles or teams. It begins in the quiet moments when no one is watching. It begins when you choose alignment over approval, when you choose truth over habit, when you choose to stay connected to yourself, even when everything around you is asking you to disconnect. Self-leadership sounds like I'm pausing before I answer because I want to respond, not react. It sounds like I'm honoring my intuition even when others don't understand it. It sounds like I'm choosing what's right for me, not what is easiest to explain to others or what is easiest for others to accept. These choices may seem small, but they're radical. They say, I trust myself to lead. And from that place, every action becomes infused with clarity, not because it is guaranteed to be perfect, but because it is yours, it is integrated. When you lead from alignment, when your logic, emotion, and intuition are all in conversation and collaboration and partnership, your choices become clear, grounded, and powerful. It's not loud, it's not rushed, it is true in presence. Self-leadership isn't about always getting it right. It's about being willing to notice when you're out of alignment and no judgment, gently course correcting. It is that moment when you say, that decision wasn't fully mine and I choose differently now. That's it. I said yes back then from fear. Let me revisit that. When you begin to see choice as a practice, not a performance, you unlock a deeper kind of power. It's not forceful. It is not control. It is presence. The presence that allows you to lead from who you are, not who you've been conditioned to be. Let's pause right here, and I invite you to take a breath and ask yourself, where in your life are you choosing by default rather than by design? What decision have you been postponing? Not because you lack clarity, but because you feared the consequence. What would it feel like? What would it feel like to lead yourself through that choice with grace and compassion, not judgment or harshness or pressure? You do not need to answer it all right now, but these are the questions that begin to awaken your awareness. And this is how choice becomes intentional and strategic. Let me share a couple of different moments. One is personal, and one is from my coaching work that can bring this idea of conscious choice into more focus. There was a friendship in my life, one that spanned years, with someone who carried combative energy. Over time, I noticed that many of her choices were affecting me in ways that were unkind and, in cases, harmful. There were moments I extended grace, moments I had direct conversations, but what became clear was that she was not ready or willing to shift her perspective or approach. And I was tempted to avoid it, to let the distance grow and convince myself it's not worth my energy to address it. But I didn't. I faced it because I recognized that I wasn't just choosing for that moment. I was choosing for the version of me I was becoming. So I addressed it directly, calmly, honestly. I did not attack. I did not rescue. I simply chose to lead with boundaries, not as punishment, but as protection. That choice wasn't easy, but it was aligned. And that alignment gave me peace, not because the situation changed, but because I did. Another example, in one of my coaching relationships, I worked with a client who was constantly holding herself back in meetings. She was brilliant, perceptive, but she would stop herself from speaking. She was telling herself it was humility. But when we explored it deeper, what we found was fear, fear of being judged, fear of being wrong, fear of being seen as too much. She realized she had been choosing silence as a form of self-protection, and that protection had become a cage for her. Her breakthrough did not come through one big performance. It came through one quiet decision to speak, even when her voice trembled, even when it was not perfect, even if it felt uncomfortable. Speak up, even if it was to say she would come back with her perspective when she did not have something ready in that moment. And the incredible thing, in time, she became less and less anxious. She began recognizing that others did not see her the same way she did. What she was doing was projecting her fears onto them. When she contributed, people listened. She began to get recognized for her, not just for her work, but her presence. And more importantly, she began to recognize herself again. That was the power of one conscious choice made over and over again to show up, to use her voice, to lead from truth instead of fear. The two stories I shared is not about perfection, you can see. They're simply about presence. They're about choosing alignment over avoidance, integrity over approval, and courage over comfort. And they remind us that our powerful next shift does not come from just doing more, it comes from choosing differently. Now let's ground everything we've explored so far into a simple, powerful rhythm you can use in your daily life, because building the ability to choose consciously doesn't come from big dramatic decisions. It comes from small, repeated moments of intentions. So here's a 3-step practice you can start doing today. Step 1, pause. Before you respond, before you say yes, before you say no, before you move forward automatically, pause. Just a moment. One conscious, deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I about to choose? Is this coming from alignment or a pattern, autopilot? That pause, even for a few seconds, breaks the cycle. It brings you into awareness. It returns you to your power. Okay, step 2, reflect. If a choice does not feel aligned, or if you're not sure, take the time to reflect. It is never about judgment. It is not to indulge in guilt or victimhood. It is about simply learning yourself. Ask, what was I feeling when I made that choice? What story or belief might have been leading me? What would have felt more true to me? This is also where you anchor in your inner compass. What does your logic say? What is your emotional energy signaling to you, communicating to you? And what is your intuition whispering to you? When all three, logic, emotion, and intuition, are in conversation, not in conflict, your choices become more integrated, more grounded, more you. And step 3, aim small, practice. Don't wait for the high stakes moments. Practice in the quiet, small ones. Could be what to wear. How do you start your day? What do you say yes to or no to? Choose with presence, choose with alignment, choose to trust yourself, even in the smallest moments, because every conscious choice, no matter how small, is a declaration to yourself. It's a declaration that says, I am leading myself. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes to choose from who you are, not who you are taught to be. Now, we have reached the close of today's episode, and I invite you to return to the truth we have been circling around all along. Your choices matter, not because they must be perfect, because they are the quiet declaration of who you are and who you are becoming. Today, we explored what it means to move from unconscious habits and inherited beliefs into conscious, intentional living. We talked about the type of choices we make: automatic, fear based, and aligned, and how much power lives in the pause, in the reflection, in the small decisions we often overlook. We talked about what it means to reclaim our voice in the moments that used to silence us, to stay in alignment even when avoidance is absolutely the easier path, and to trust that growth happens one conscious choice at a time. We also walked through 3 simple but powerful practices: pause, create space before you choose; reflect, get curious about what you're leading, the decision; practice small, build the muscle of alignment in small, everyday moments. These are not steps, they are a way of living, one that puts our self-awareness into motion, one that brings our presence into our power. And this week, I invite you to watch your choices, not just the big ones, the quiet ones. Where are you choosing from presence? Where are you choosing from pressure? What would it feel like to choose from your inner compass, even in the smallest decision? And if something shifts, even slightly, I would love to hear about it, because your reflections don't just inspire your growth, it inspires mine, and it expands the path for everyone listening with you. So share, reach out, message me, let me know what opens up. And next week, in episode 11, we tackle conscious presence and peace. We explore how to bring your awareness into the current moment more deeply, and how that presence becomes the foundation for inner peace, emotional clarity, and aligned living. If today's episode was about how you choose, next week is about how you just be. Thank you for joining me today on Catalyze Yourself. I'm Gayatri, and I'm so grateful for your presence here. Until we meet again, keep choosing gently, keep leading intentionally, and keep walking forward, one breath, one moment, one conscious choice at a time.